Thank you so much for joining. My name is David Robinson, and I have the honour of being the Director of the Global Schistosomiasis Alliance, GSA. It is a real pleasure to welcome you all to this exciting meeting. It seems a long time since the Schisto folk have been able to get together. And a real special thanks to those in the world joining at probably unsociable hours. Sorry about that, but I've no doubt that it will be well worth it. So let's enjoy catching up on some innovative research and sharing our experiences with others in the field. For sure, there is still a lot of research activity needed if we are going to control schistosomiasis and move towards the perhaps ambitious elimination targets set out in the new WHO roadmap, such an important document for all of us. We've all faced extraordinary challenges to our research when dealing with the pandemic, whether working in the field, the office, or the laboratory, and many are now being hit with additional funding challenges. So I'm really pleased to see the tremendous enthusiasm and the motivation of people to join the meeting, and I much look forward to learning about recent developments. As you've seen from the programme, we've got 4 sessions spread over 2 days dedicated to presentations and discussions on schistosomiasis. What could be better? Today, our meeting begins with brief updates from the GSA working groups and work streams, and is followed by session 2, highlighting new schistosomiasis research and findings. We will hear from researchers in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, USA, Brazil, and China, who will be giving talks ranging from morbidity assessment, vaccines, biocontrol tools, genomics, snail distributions, immunology, risk mapping, and surveillance tools. There really is something for everyone interested in Schisto over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, the focus changes a little bit, and we're going to focus especially on early career researchers and the exciting research in progress, with some hopefully interactive networking opportunities for participants. Talks there will include chlorination methods for Schisto prevention, intensive treatment and vaccine immune responses, schistosome diagnostic developments, and more. Following that, there are going to be some rapid fire micro talks, which I'm really looking forward to. I wish all the speakers every success in their presentations, and hopefully will generate some good discussion. Now, we all miss that opportunity to meet new people and exchange ideas during the social breaks of face-to-face conferences, or whether it's in the bar or somewhere afterwards. And we hope that our networking session on Air Meet tomorrow afternoon will be fun, virtual fun, and allow some good discussion and contacts to be made. So do stay tuned for that tomorrow afternoon. Before we begin, just a few words, if I may, about the Global Schistosomiasis Alliances. For those who might not be familiar, we are an alliance of partners working together to accelerate progress towards schistosomiasis control and elimination. Indeed, our vision, similar to WHO, is elimination of schistosomiasis as a public health problem. Our partners from around the globe include government departments, non-governmental organisations, research institutes, philanthropic funding organisations, and industry. And we have many people as individual members. Now, hopefully, you all received the Schistosomiasis Bulletin and are regular users of our expanding website. And I hope also many of you are also on Twitter and see our posts there. If you're not already involved with GSA activities, please do join us and register on the website. GSA is managed by a small executive team which oversees and supports activities. Much of our work is organised around topic-orientated working groups and work streams that bring together experts and stakeholders to address specific challenges or barriers to schistosomiasis control and elimination, as identified in the earlier GSA Schistosomiasis Action Plan and the new WHO NTD roadmap, such an important document for the sector. The Alliance is thriving, we believe, due to the great individual efforts of many people, especially Nic Wheeler and Kat Gulias in the GSA team, but also the experts who run and attend our meetings regularly, exploring current topics. Some of the ideas generated are often forerunners to deeper discussions, wider discussions within WHO and ESPN and with funders. So in this first session, we would like to tell you about some of the exciting and important work that has been ongoing within the Alliance. The plan is to run through all the presentations by the working group chairs before any discussion, but please do place your questions and comments in the Q&A box, and we will pick them up at the end of the talks when all speakers will be available to comment and reply. So please do use that Q&A box. So let's crack on and start the talks. It's a real pleasure to introduce our first presentation concerning the research working group chaired by Poppy Lamberton and Justin Nono. Poppy and Justin have played a major role in organising this meeting, pulling people together, getting ideas together. Poppy is a reader at the University of Glasgow, and Justin is a team leader at the University of Cape Town in South Africa and the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation in Cameroon. Poppy will present the work of the group, including the Snail Workstream led by Nic Wheeler and Fiona Allan, and the recently formed Genital Schistosomiasis Community of Practice coordinated by Nuc. So I hope you enjoyed the session. Please do think of questions, please do feedback into the Q&A, and over to Poppy, please, for the first presentation.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I know people are spread across the world because we have nearly 300 attendees from, I think, at least 130 countries, which is wonderful. So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the research working group, what it is. We are the group that have organised this research meeting that's taking place today and tomorrow with Anouk Gouvrat, who has done the vast majority of the work. So thank you very much, Anouk. I am Poppy Lamberton, and I am co-chair of the research working group with Dr. Justin Nono. And just to give you a little bit of background about what we are. So the research working group is really a kind of enabling platform. So it's linking researchers who work on schistosomiasis from across the globe to really address priority research needs. But also as a group, we help identify and sort of advocate what those priority needs are. We have several different outputs, so meetings such as this and previous ones in New Orleans, for example, but also different findings. We disseminate them. We help identify and develop different tools and then disseminate information about those, and also identifying particular needs and challenges. And really, we work together as a group to help advocate schistosomiasis research, to really put those key priorities forward and amplify messages from the schistosome research community. So we have identified several key areas to date. So first of all, we've identified diagnostics, which you'll hear a little bit more about from the Diagnostics Workstream, who've been really active in this area. We've also identified female and male genital schistosomiasis and snail vector control as two other key areas that also now have work streams, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them in future slides. But other areas which we have identified as key areas, but we don't have any work streams on them yet. So morbidity and infection markers, for example, we know that we lack good morbidity markers in particular for schistosomiasis, also drug discovery, and with the current drugs and future drugs, monitoring drug resistance. Zoonotic aspects, implementation research, modeling, and more recently, the migration of people, and also areas that we've been talking about, for example, vaccines and climate change, and the impact of conflict and outbreaks of diseases such as COVID, and how that's impacted not just implementation, but also research. And a key area as well is strengthening behaviour change and behaviour change communication within endemic countries. And that's working with the behaviour change working group, which you'll hear about in a minute. So at the moment, this is the list of the different institutes and the different countries where our members for the actual research working group come from. We are very welcome. We would really be delighted to have more people from academic institutes in particular from endemic countries. And so please do get in touch if you're interested. You can see that there's a good sort of diversity of institutes here, but we would like to make that more representative of endemic countries. Some of the key outputs we've had, so for example, working with the Schistosomiasis Action Plan, which stemmed from our meeting in New Orleans, we held a symposium at the European Congress of Tropical Medicine and International Health, and also that led to a publication on schistosomiasis control through the ages. We were quite heavily involved in supporting different schistosome researchers on submitting workshops for the Coral NTD breakout sessions, including running a fake news and trust one, and that's leading to a research article that's currently in preparation. We've also obviously done this virtual meeting, and then also something just to highlight how this can work. So Dr. Justin Nono and myself, for example, had never met, but since meeting at the GSA, we've actually put together a grant application and now researching diagnostics and metabolomic determinants and schistosomiasis together. So it really is a wonderful platform for enabling that. talking a bit about the Snail research stream. So Nic Wheeler and Fiona Allan are leading that. They have set up 2 different platforms. So they've got one very much focused on genomics and genetics, and then a second one focusing on the ecology and ecosystems and geographical variation of the snails. So again, this is really bringing together people from across the world who work on snails and the vector control for schistosomiasis. So on the left here are the members of the Genomics Genetics Workstream. So you can again see a lot of people from different countries around the world, but again, slightly fewer from endemic countries, which we would like to change. On the right is the malacology group. And what you can see, you've got some really good representation from endemic countries, and it's really nice to have all of their input on working together. The genomics group have had a couple of meetings, and the malacology actually just had their first meeting last week. So it's really exciting times for this. And the next one that I mentioned was the genital schistosomiasis. So they had their first meeting on the 26th of April, and they actually sort of got together. They talked about the research they've been doing. They shared their latest findings. They talked about training materials to try and get feedback and to update those, and really to talk about what are the research priorities within this research priority that we'd identified. So sort of really homing in on what is it that they need for their sort of community of practice. So what is it in this group? So that's what they've been doing to date. So some, again, early on, but really nice sort of rapid start, and really hopefully going to find some important collaborations and research priority areas to build on. And they've got, again, these are the lists of the institutes and the countries where the members are from. So again, if you're interested in joining any of these work streams, or particularly some of the other priority areas that I've mentioned before that haven't got work streams yet, then do please get in touch. We really want to enable researchers to work together on this. And if you're interested in anything, here is the website to get in touch, or just drop Anouk, Justin, or myself an email. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Poppy, for that wonderful and rapid run through all the activities of the research working group. A splendid job that group is actually doing. And please note, lots of opportunities there for bringing in new topics. We now move to monitoring and evaluation, a key consideration for all of us involved in schistosomiasis. Chairs of this group are Dr. Fiona Fleming, the Director of Monitoring, Evaluation and Research at the Schistosomiasis Control Initiative Foundation, and Professor Louis-Albert Tchuenté, who's Professor of Parasitology at the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon, and there's a wealth of experience of running campaigns within country and within Africa. So without further ado, over to Fiona, who will be presenting the talk.
Hello, I'm Fiona Fleming from the SCI Foundation, and I'm speaking on behalf of Professor Louis-Albert Tchuenté from the University of Yaoundé and myself, who are the co-chairs of the GSA Monitoring Evaluation Working Group. In April 2018, the GSA partners determined a need for a specific group on monitoring and evaluation, or M&E, to share and develop evidence-based strategies and operational frameworks for schistosomiasis programs. The purposes of this group are to foster communication, discussion and interconnectedness for schistosomiasis M&E specialists and stakeholders, to collate relevant existing information and training material, which will identify preferred practices and gaps in knowledge for schistomapping and impact assessments, explore appropriate diagnostics and sampling strategies which would be tailored to epidemiological and programmatic settings, identify operational research needed for developing efficient epidemiological assessments, and research into practical measurable indicators and monitoring for subtle and chronic morbidity, including female genital schistosomiasis, promote standardization of data and subsequent data sharing with ESPN for open access. The working group, who meet on a monthly basis, is constituted of members from Africa, the Middle East, Europe and the US. We are keen to increase our membership, so please contact Louis-Albert, Anouk or myself if you're interested to join. The monthly meeting currently has 2 standing items, the Toolbox Forum and the M&E Survey Standards. The Toolbox Forum is to support partner coordination, sharing of preferred M&E practices and lessons learned on existing tools and guidance from ESPEN and WHO. And the forum has been used to discuss the following tools and resources since August 2020. COVID-19 adaptations and risk assessments to monitoring, evaluation and surveys for schistosomiasis. The ESPEN Subdistrict Optimization Analysis Tool. WHO coverage evaluation tools, including coverage evaluation survey, the supervisor's coverage tool, and the data quality assessment tool. Schistosomiasis impact surveys, which include sentinel site surveys as well as recent remapping or reassessment efforts, and the presentation of the ESPEN Collect process. The M&E Survey Standards is a drafted skeleton reference document which will be developed further following a meeting with ESPEN to align with where they see the working group can add value to existing resources for ministries of health and with the working group resource contributions. On top of these items, the meeting is used as a platform for information sharing about upcoming meetings and webinars or recent publications or funding of interest to those working in schistosomiasis. In addition to the monthly meetings, the GSA M&E Working Group has supported the coordination and content for several M&E workshops, including in 2018, where it co-hosted a workshop with the NTD Modelling Consortium on evidence for schistomicromapping, and then a subsequent Core NTD breakout session in the November of that year. In 2020, the GSA M&E Working Group fed into 4 large meetings on operational research for schisto control and elimination and the development of an M&E framework. The report was submitted to the Core NTD donors and is available on both the GSA and the NTD Support Centre websites. For our 2021 work plan, we have identified the next steps driven by the M&E Survey Standards and Toolbox Forum, which are to continue discussions with ESPEN to determine gaps and needs for standardised schisto tools which support the ESPEN Collect survey process. Collate M&E training tools, protocols, technical briefs from the members of the GSA M&E Working Group, and then organise task teams to review the collated materials, what needs to be updated, what needs to be newly developed, with task teams focused on M&E protocols and field tools and M&E training tools, with a further task team on analysis tools to be formed in early 2022. A work plan and timeline will then be developed from these task teams, which help to develop the standardised M&E survey material development. And then ultimately longer term communication through webinars and other dissemination platforms through the GSA to ensure all member states and partners know that these tools and the materials are available. Thank you very much for listening.
That's fantastic, Fiona. Just incredible how much work the M&E Working Group has actually managed to do. It's leading the way in so many different ways. And the fact that we actually have monthly meetings and feeding into all these different organisations and plans for the future is highly commendable. So thank you, Fiona, and thank you, Louis-Albert, for keeping this group very much on track and looking very closely at next steps for the future. During some of our discussions around WASH and other activities about interventions for schistosomiasis, we had quite a bit of heard quite a bit of mention about the possibility of thinking more closely about engineering. And we were extremely lucky, I think, to attract Professor Mike Templeton, who's Professor of Public Health Engineering at Imperial College, to actually begin to formulate the activities of this group. And now I would like to introduce Mike to give the next presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Templeton. I work at Imperial College London and I'm the chair of the GSA's Engineering Working Group. So the Engineering Working Group is a convening, enabling and coordinating platform, not just for engineers, but anyone working on prevention of schistosomiasis via the construction of infrastructure or creation of new technologies. So our purpose is really, we have a technical focus, and we want to focus on providing good practice in terms of constructability, technical effectiveness, operation and maintenance requirements, safety standards, and costs of infrastructure, specifically with schistosomiasis prevention in mind. So we're not looking to replicate what's already out there in the WASH world in terms of advice, but really adding to that in terms of things that we need to think about specifically with schistosomiasis prevention in mind. We also want to foster communication and interconnectedness, between the WASH sector and the schisto world, for example. Collate relevant existing information in terms of what people are already doing and good practices and gaps in knowledge in schisto-endemic regions. And also to promote research and implementation of solutions at scale, so that we can grow the impact of infrastructure and technological solutions for schisto prevention. So we have a number of organizations involved in the group already, but we're always looking to add more members. So do get in touch if you're interested in joining. Good spread of countries there. And really our priorities are, first of all, to review exposure and transmission routes for schistosomiasis and develop sort of a matrix of risk-reducing infrastructure and technology solutions. Review the impact of large engineering projects on schistosomiasis risks, so not just WASH, but also big things like dams or irrigation projects. And then we want to produce and disseminate design guides for safe water contact infrastructure for both protected water sources and unprotected sources. So that might be, for example, laundry or bathing facilities. How you construct those, how do you ensure that they are properly protecting people from schistosomiasis? We also want to promote and support research into these kinds of solutions and promote the uptake of these outputs of the group at scale and in as many settings and countries as appropriate around the world. So initially we've created a survey in both English and French, which we've disseminated out to our contacts, mainly in the WASH world who are working in schisto-endemic regions. And we also want to create a list of schisto-endemic countries to provide to organizations working on engineering implementation, so that they're aware that this might apply in the regions that they're working. And so the survey collates relevant existing information on current practices. So, for example, asks a little bit of technical information about the sanitation, for example, or the water supply infrastructure that is installed in schisto-endemic regions, and asks specific questions about things that might be important from a schisto prevention standpoint. So if you're interested in taking that survey or disseminating it to your contacts, please do get in touch with us, and we'd love to share it. The more data and information we get, the better. And so really the next steps are for the group to grow the group. As I said, please let us know if you'd like to be part of the conversation. Collate the relevant information that we get from these surveys, and then really to put it together into a report which would share best practices, which we would then try to disseminate with key global stakeholders, so that this advice on behalf of the GSA gets out there and is taken into account in places where schistosomiasis is a concern. And we also want to consider what's being done currently and what is known and not known about schistosomiasis prevention. So identifying gaps in knowledge and promoting research to fill those gaps is another aim. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Great start to this working group, and really an opportunity for people to get involved. To my mind, it has been such a neglected area, especially the large engineering project side. So much of the schistosomiasis that we see is due to the creation of new dams, irrigation projects, etc. And we've given very little thought as to how to address that. So real opportunities for those interested in that area. So thanks very much, Mike, and thanks very much to the whole of the working group team there for engineering. Now, our next presentation concerns an area that we all touch on from time to time, and that's really behaviour change in health education. And here to take us through the great work ongoing in this group is Willemijn Zaadnoordijk, who's the Programme Manager of the Prosecutantal Donation Programme at Merck. So over to you, Willemijn.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Willemijn Zaadnoordijk, and it is my pleasure today as chair of the Behavioral Change and Health Education Working Group to present to you and introduce a bit more about the work that we have been conducting together with our members. But firstly, I would like to give you a bit better understanding of our purpose, really for you to understand what is the mission of our working group. So this GSA working group is an open convening platform that gathers all different NTD stakeholders across different sectors who share an expertise or have a deep interest in schistosomiasis behavioral change. And we aim really to promote behavioral change for schistosomiasis risk reduction and elimination as defined by the new WHO NTD roadmap. Now, how we are achieving this is by really exchanging and interconnecting with the different members and also within the different NTD community. We believe that together, by joining forces, we can also better advocate and serve as a catalyst and to really integrate better science-based behavioral change interventions and also better shape health education strategies. We're also looking into how different communication activities can help to raise better visibility on this important topic and how these can be better integrated into new schistosomiasis control and elimination programs. Now, furthermore, the purpose of this working group is also to assemble and to make existing schistosomiasis related behavioral change materials available. And on top of this, we are also looking into delivering new tools, new frameworks, new guidelines that will help field practitioners and also scientists to really move their work forward. Today, the Behavioral Change and Health Education Working Group is constituted out of 20 different members represented by the different organizations, both ranging from public and private sector. So this is an open convening platform. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in joining or learning more about behavioral change, we always welcome new members. But today, as you can see, we have policymakers, NTD country leaders, we have NGOs that really offer us the country insights, their experiences of lessons learned in the field. We have social scientists that really gives us also a very good understanding of what behavioral change is, its challenges, and also how we can drive within this working group this agenda forward. And the private sector, also a very important actor in striving for the elimination of schistosomiasis. So within this working group, we have been working on different activities. We are developing an online resource repository for behavioral change and health education tools that can be used for schistosomiasis. We also have a resource repository with all available existing social health education materials and communication tools, training materials, frameworks, methodologies, and protocols that can as well be accessed to on our GSA website. We are also conducting a schistosomiasis systematic review gap analysis to identify the evidence of what works and also what gaps exist to better formulate the next research agenda. Now, we're also advocating for the development of practical and theory-based strategies and solutions that can be tailored to different subgroups and into different cultural and epidemiological settings. We further engage with a wider health and social science research community that has experience in local communities, and we also obviously participate and engage into different NTD program meetings to really showcase our work. In terms of next steps, we are planning to submit the systematic review gap analysis for publication. We are also going to provide an internal repository of all the different ongoing projects in behavioral change with the different context, strategy, and implementation information. we further also going to continue to identify where we can find different synergies between other entities within the WASH sector and other health education programs and platforms. And we're also going to continue to work closely with the NNN WASH working group and feeding into the first session of the NNN Behavioral Change Toolkit. So having said that, thank you very much for your attention. And if you'd like to learn more about our activities, or if you would like to join us, please don't hesitate to contact Dr. Anouk Gouffras at the following email address. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Willemijn, and thank you for the whole of the working group team for working so hard in this sector. And I'm really impressed by the number of organisations and people involved now in behavioural change, and it's so good to hear of the social scientists coming in and really pinpointing some of the challenges ahead of us. And I think you're quite correct in terms of thinking about synergies with other NTDs. The new roadmap is actually giving us every encouragement to get integration between the other NTDs, and I'm sure there is some mileage there, especially with the soil transmitted helminths for the people working on schistosomiasis. Okay, well, let's move rapidly on. Our next presentation actually concerns the work of our implementation working group and is chaired by two key players in the USAID Act to End program. Anna Phillips is the SCH and SDH focal point and learning lead in Act to End, and Upendo Mwingira, who's co-chairs with Anna, is the senior NTD technical advisor. So let's move on and hear what the group has been up to. Next presentation, please.
Today I'm going to present on the implementation working group on behalf of both the co-chairs, myself, Anna Phillips, and Upendo Mwingira. So the implementation working group is split into two work streams: the elimination work stream, which will collate a group of different stakeholders working on elimination, and the prosecutantal coordination work stream to coordinate and liaise with WHO and SVEN implementing partners and Ministry of Health representatives on how to track prosecutantal supplies across and within countries. At present, schistosomiasis endemic countries are encouraged to increase control efforts and move towards elimination as required by the WHO roadmap for NTDs. The current most burning questions are: can schisto be eliminated? What is the role of preventive chemotherapy at the elimination stage? What monitoring and evaluation strategies are required? And what does it require in terms of more sensitive diagnostics? And is prosecutantal sufficient, or do we need new drugs? The purpose of the GSA elimination workstream is to develop a platform for sharing knowledge and experiences from various countries that have started to implement schisto elimination programs as a means of sharing ideas and helping other countries, implementation partners or donors who'd like advice on how to start this process. So to achieve this, first of all, we started a working group of schisto experts that have implemented elimination projects in different contexts. This consists of individuals from around the world, including Ministries of Health in Kenya and Rwanda, Swiss TPH, CDC in China and the US, Sightsavers International, FHI 360, Imperial College London, WHO, WIPRO, SCI Foundation, and Task Force for Global Health. So the working group will develop an appropriate knowledge platform for discussing experiences. This will be through a communication platform to share protocols and country examples, and also understand what would be most useful to members of the working group to tap into that knowledge and lesson learned. So first of all, we decided to develop an opinion piece, amalgamating what efforts have been done, including challenges and lessons learned regarding schisto elimination. And here's just an example of some of the main themes that came out of the brainstorming on the elimination article that will be developed. So ultimately, the end goal of this article is to share information and review findings for the wider policymaker, donor, NGO, and research communities to complement efforts that WHO have made on elimination progress and information gathering. So now I will leave it to Upendo to talk about the Prosecutantal Coordination Workstream.
My name is Upendo Mwingira. I'm the Senior NTD Advisor from the Act to End NTDs East program. I'll be presenting on the second workstream of the Working Group for Implementation of the GSA. And this is about Prosecutantal Coordination Workstream. There is a real need to track Prosecutantal tablets in most or all, I can say, of the endemic countries. This is because Prosecutantal has the shortest shelf life of all the PC-NTD medicines. And also there is lack of reliable inventory data means of the tablets that can expire, and also a challenge in accountability of these tablets. Also, as you could see, and most of you are aware, following the recent FCDO cuts to the NTD programs, it is crucial to assess these Prosecutantal supplies in countries, as well as to identify the gaps, the needs, and also the capacity for distribution of Prosecuantals in the countries. So the Prosecutantal Coordination Workstream is aimed to coordinate and liaise with WHO and ESPEN, as well as implementing partners and countries, ministries of health representatives on how to track the availability, distribution, and viability of Prosecutantal supplies across and within the countries. So the Workstream had its first meeting, which brought together key stakeholders, such as the Standard Core, ESPEN, and also members, as you can see on the table on my right-hand side. In this meeting, members discussed Prosecutantal coordination, and we also collected feedback on the development of the Prosecutantal inventory function, tracking down to the last mile using the NT-Deliver platform. So this is the function of the Prosecutantal coordination tool. So the next step from that meeting is to consult ESPEN, WHO, and country supply chain logisticians who we think would really help us to fulfill the goal from the last meeting. And also we think that as a next step to assess country needs through consultations, get input and feedback for all countries, those which have mature operations of the supply chain and those which have less mature supply chain operations. So we strongly welcome members, new members. If you are interested in these activities, please, you're most welcome, and you can contact the GSA. We still need some more members to get more feedback on this work stream. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna and Upendo. It's great to see so many different people coming together and actually trying to nail down what's needed for elimination. And there's some hugely important practical considerations in terms of Prosecutantal coordination, really brought to the fore now by the withdrawal of the FCDO in implementation activities. So this is certainly a very important area for the Alliance. And as people are saying, if you're interested, please do join in and contribute. The more people that are in this together, the better. So finally, but by no means least, and I'm a little bit conscious of the time, our diagnostic group is chaired by Bonnie Webster. Bonnie's a research leader at the Natural History Museum in London and co-chaired by Lisette van Lieshout, who is head of clinical parasitology at the Leiden University Medical School. So great experience within the group, and another group that's been doing an absolute splendid job. So over to you, Bonnie, I think is giving the talk.
So good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. So I'm Dr. Bonnie Webster, and I will give you a brief overview of the Diagnostics Workstream within the GSA. So I'm co-chair of this workstream with my colleague, Dr. Lisette van Lieshout, who you can see here from the Leiden University Medical Center. So the rationale for the Diagnostics Workstream is to have a multi-stakeholder platform that brings together multiple individuals and groups from across the globe working on or using any form of schistosomiasis diagnostic. This includes members from dynamic backgrounds and expertise. And our purpose is to encourage and expand communication and interconnectedness between diagnostic developers, to review and identify current available diagnostics, and particularly to share knowledge and experience of their utility. Also to identify key challenges and barriers to diagnostic development and delivery, particularly as we move forward into scenarios of advanced schistosomiasis control and elimination. And also to create and disseminate information and communication pieces for diagnostic users, particularly focused on those needs in endemic settings. And our overall aim is to synergize efforts in delivering the tools that are needed to bridge the gap between where we are now with schistosomiasis control and where we need to be within the WHO goals for elimination. So as said, we are made up of members with dynamic backgrounds and expertise, from those in the industry to those that have or are developing diagnostic assays or platforms in the laboratory, to those implementing them in the field, to those really focused on policy. And as you can see in this table, that our members are currently from multiple countries in Europe, Asia, USA, and also Africa. But we also want to expand this, particularly to those working in or have experience of working in endemic settings. And we meet every 3 to 4 months to discuss updates, projects, and our activities. So our priority activities so far have been focused on understanding and reviewing current available diagnostics, defining the use cases for schistosomiasis diagnostics and supporting the development of target product profiles, and defining what the current bottlenecks are to diagnostic development and delivery. So some of our achievements so far include the publications of a communications piece for the available diagnostics, and we have fed into the target product profile development being developed by the WHO, which is aimed at detailing the diagnostic characteristics that developers need to consider for appropriate tests for schistosomiasis at the different stages of control elimination. So what does this look like? So here you can see the published communication piece of, for the available diagnostics on the GSA website, which is freely available and is also available in multiple languages to support users. But this is also a dynamic document that we will update if information changes or becomes available, and we'd also very much welcome feedback from the users. And our next steps really are to focus on discussions around sample biobanks for diagnostic development and testing, together with the various requirements surrounding that. And we are currently discussing ideas around a concept proposal for sample repositories to support schistosomiasis diagnostic advancements. So that's all for now, and Lisette and myself will be available during the meeting for any discussions, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of this 2-day research event.
Thanks very much, Bonnie and Lisette. And again, a lot of activity there. And I'm sure many of our participants will be interested in coming back and talking about some of the aspects in relation to diagnosis. It's so important, especially when we're moving towards elimination and we need greater sensitivity as well as specificity with our diagnostic kits. So there we are. That's the end of the presentation. So we're now open for questions, and we have the opportunity of actually bringing in all our working group chairs and workstream chairs. I think they're all present. And Anouk is not only filling up the chat with some fantastic suggestions of where you can check out these different activities, but also has been coordinating the questions. But I'm not sure we've got many in, but some of the panelists might even have questions for themselves. Would anybody like to kick off? Well, no, can't see anybody raising hands as yet, but I'm going to kick off. I'd like to just go back to Poppy, where you mentioned a lot of new priorities for the research working group, and you had a list there. What do you think will be the next one to tackle? Would it be zoonotic infections, morbidity, or what's your thinking?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think morbidity markers is going to be key, particularly because of the WHO guidelines, and they're talking about elimination as a public health problem and using sort of catechats as a guideline for morbidity. But there are also, I think, long-standing knowledge, but recent publications, particularly from Morbid, that are showing that those just aren't suitable for measuring morbidity. And so I think that's probably going to be one of the most key areas. I personally, I mean, Justin, I don't know if you would say anything differently there or add to that.
Not at all, actually. I think I will fully support that. Specifically, when we do look at the EPHP, then goal, that is to go below 1% of heavy infection. And as we do now, evolutively know, the 1% heavy infection might not necessarily translate into a 1% cases of severe then morbidity, since also light infection in some setting, depending on some environmental or intrinsic factor, might definitely then translate into serious morbidity. So I definitely think, and I guess we will witness that in one of the upcoming talks, that monitoring morbidity with the imaging tools is going to be key in the next research agenda, and adding to that also some morbidity marker to pinpoint that more properly.
Thanks, Justin. And just because I know attendees can't, so if you just read out Darren's comment, nor does a reduction in heavy infection equate to a program decision. So it's also, yeah, it's definitely something where we need improved markers to be able to then guide improved cutoffs and things like that. So I think that's probably one that I would personally say is.
Yeah, I think the main problem certainly seems to be with intestinal schistosomiasis, with Mansenal infections, actually trying to get those morbidity indicators sorted. Perhaps Fiona, if you're there, you mentioned the need for training tools, development of training tools. What's on the top of your agenda there?
On top of the agenda is really, whilst the global community sort of work towards having more standardized survey designs in terms of mapping and impact assessment, in the meantime, we can work towards standardizing some of the existing tools for training, for surveys, for existing diagnostics, so that each country is using very similar methods, and that we, you know, there's not 2 days of catechats here and 1 day of catechats there, and that some of the results can be comparable, and that training is done of a very high quality, and so that slides are read similarly across countries. So we're really looking across the ESPN Collect process, which is quite a new process, trying to determine with ESPN and with the working group partners, what are some of the existing resources that are available, how can we pull those together, and how can we standardize them so that programs are using the same high quality level of materials across the board.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Now we do have a question from Ben Lukubai, which goes to all the panelists, excuse me. And Ben's asking, may the panelists share their talk about the opportunities and the reach of the working groups for early career researchers in endemic countries. So perhaps those who haven't had a chance to speak might just be able to say something. Fiona or Nic from the Workstream, Willemijn, Behaviour, Diagnostics, Engineering, just a quick response as we move into our break. What opportunities are there for early career researchers in endemic countries in your area?
I'll go ahead, David, if that's okay. Sorry, I just saw Nic came on. Well, I think certainly malacology and field study sides is very exciting at the moment. And we're encouraging within the GSA Snail stream for early career researchers in country to join us. And that's not only looking at the snail side of things, but the whole, what's happening with transmission and treating that as a whole. So please do join or ask questions to any of our great panelists here. We're enthusiastic for new input.
Willemijn?
Yes, thank you. So as you may know, behavioral change is a very challenging topic, and because there is not one size fits all. So I think what would be very interesting for researchers is actually to really understand what are the current gaps in really implementing the behavioral change interventions. So yes, I think there can be a lot of different studies further conducted in the field to gather further information and certainly science evidence-based materials into how we can move this forward.
Thanks, Willemijn. Anna, I don't know if you plan to still have, Anna, any quick response there? We are going into the break now, so we have to be very quick.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say in terms of advancing careers, the usefulness of these working groups is making contacts and meeting other people working in this field. Particularly in the elimination stream, you've got people who are working on elimination projects in various countries that might have opportunities within particular projects. But for this, I think it will be useful for networking as much as anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, very quickly, there is a question for you in the chat, I think, somewhere as well. But perhaps just answering the question in relation to the career opportunities in engineering.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think certainly we'd love to see early career researchers be part of the working group. And I think a lot of the sort of things we're discussing require fresh thinking, actually, and sometimes a lot of the practices in the WASH sector are things that are sort of accepted as Bible truths, and there's a lot of opportunity, especially if we're thinking about schisto prevention, to think outside the box there about other focuses. So yeah, definitely welcome early career researchers. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. And closing remarks to diagnostics. Lisette, have you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I can just confirm what has already been said. We absolutely welcome young scientists, in particular from the endemic countries, because that's a bit lacking in the diagnostic work group. And what we need in concerning research is more diagnostic procedures which are less observer dependent, so which are more standardized. There are diagnostic outcomes in totally different settings. So I certainly welcome people who are working on that area.
Well, thanks everybody. I mean, so it's been a great session. It's been eye-opening as the amount of activity and all the work that's actually being done. We do have a question. We haven't got time to answer it at the moment, but hopefully we'll come back to it. Adriana Miele is asking, what about training of health professionals in low morbidity areas? And I think that's such an important question, and certainly as it relates to low transmission, morbidity, FGS, and everything else that we're concerned with. So I'm going to close the meeting now, but don't go away. You've got till 5 minutes past the hour to take a break, and then we'll be back with Justin chairing and moderating the start of our innovative research talks. So thanks everybody, well done, and look forward to the next session.